If my aunt had known who actually signed the check for her 40th anniversary party, she never would have opened her mouth in front of 60 guests. But she didn't know. And by the time she did, it was already too late to take the words back. My name is Walter Briggs. I'm 59 years old, and I've spent the last 30 years quietly building a commercial real estate portfolio that most of my family still doesn't know exists. To them, I'm just the quiet nephew-in-law who fixes things at family gatherings and never says much. I've always preferred it that way. My father used to tell me that a man who has to announce his success has usually got very little of it, and I took that lesson with me into every room I've ever walked into. My Aunt Dorothy raised my cousin, Michael, practically on her own after her husband left when Michael was 9. I watched her work double shifts at a diner for years, and I never forgot the summer she quietly paid my community college tuition. When my own parents couldn't, I owed her more than she ever knew. And when her 40th wedding anniversary came around this year, I wanted to do something for her without her ever finding out it was me. So I called the venue coordinator at the Lynbrook Hall myself, put down the full deposit, and told them under no circumstances was my name to appear on anything. The night of the party, I arrived a little late after fixing a flat tire, still in my work boots and a flannel jacket I'd had for years. Dorothy caught sight of me from across the room and, in front of nearly her entire guest list, called out loud enough for half the room to hear, "Well, look who finally decided to show up." The failure of the family, dressed like he's here to fix the plumbing. A few people laughed uncomfortably. My cousin Michael looked at the floor. I simply nodded, found a seat near the back, and said nothing. Dorothy had made comments like that at every family gathering for 15 years. Ever since I dropped out of a corporate job to start investing in property no one believed in. I had long since stopped trying to correct her. What Dorothy never knew was that 3 months earlier, when the original venue she'd booked for the anniversary abruptly closed, and she'd been quietly panicking about losing her deposit with no time to find another hall. I was the one who called in a favor with an old business partner who owned Lynbrook. I arranged the entire replacement booking, covered every cost from the catering to the flowers to the string quartet she'd always dreamed of having, and made sure the invoice never carried my name. I didn't say a word that night. Instead, I sat quietly through dinner, watching Michael try to keep the peace and Dorothy hold court at the head of the table, telling guests how her son had saved the day by finding this beautiful venue on such short notice. I let her have that moment. I wasn't there to take anything away from her, only to make sure she never had to worry about the cost. Near the end of the night, the venue's events manager, a woman named Priya who had worked with me on dozens of projects over the years, walked over to personally thank the host for choosing Lynbrook again and asked where she should send the final invoice adjustment. Dorothy looked confused and said she'd already paid the deposit weeks ago and didn't understand what adjustment there could be. Priya smiled and said everything had been settled in full by Mr. Briggs, and gestured toward me at the back table. The room went quiet. Dorothy's face changed slowly, the confidence draining out of it as she looked at me, still sitting there in my flannel jacket and work boots. "Walter," she said carefully, "you paid for tonight?" I simply told her I'd wanted to make sure she never had to worry about a single detail on a night that mattered so much to her. The consequences weren't dramatic, but they were real. Dorothy spent the rest of the evening avoiding eye contact, clearly humiliated in front of the same guests she'd performed for all night. Michael, for his part, finally learned the truth about who had actually saved his mother's anniversary, and I could see something shift in how he looked at me from that point on. A week later, at a smaller family lunch, Dorothy pulled me aside privately, her voice much quieter than I'd heard it in years, and admitted she had spent 15 years measuring me by the wrong things. She apologized, not with excuses but plainly, and asked if she could take me to dinner properly sometime, just the two of us. I said yes, not because I needed the apology, but because I understood that people who grew up scared of not having enough often measure others the same way they were once measured themselves. That didn't make her words at the party hurt any less, but it helped me understand where they came from. We've had dinner 3 times since then. Dorothy still teases me sometimes, but there's no edge to it anymore. Michael calls more often now, too. And last month, he asked if I'd help him look at his first rental property investment. People sometimes ask me why I never corrected her sooner, Why I let her call me a failure for 15 years without saying a word. The truth is, the boots you wear to a party never tell you what someone carried to get there. Some of us build quietly, in flannel jackets and work boots, while the world waits for us to announce ourselves. I've learned that the truest kind of strength doesn't need an audience. It only needs patience, and the willingness to let the truth arrive exactly when it's supposed to.